Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it was nice and quiet in here. We're at Big Ten Media Days as they're sort of wrapping things up. They're starting to tear down the set and all that kind of stuff for the Big Ten Network. It was nice and quiet in here, and as soon as we set the camera up, the Big Ten Network crew started clanking stuff together, and it sounds like they're pulling chains out, pulling up anchor chains on a ship or something. I think they're just making noise just because they know it's this show. But if you do hear some unusual noises, number one, welcome to Buckeye Weekly. Number two, that's what it is.
Exactly. I'm expecting, we are here in the end zone of Lucas Oil. I'm expecting maybe something to get ripped, and then they'll have to rubber it and repair it and sew it back up. So if you hear that going on in the foreground, just know that it's pretty awesome, and we wish we could turn the camera around. But we do want to let you know this is a normal Buckeye Weekly. This is kind of a special weekend edition wrap-up of everything. So if it's a little bit shorter than you might expect, just realize it's been a long couple of days here in Indianapolis, and we do eventually want to go home.
And there are a lot of construction cones between here and Columbus.
Do you think, Tom, I-70 will ever be fixed?
Well, I mean, the heat death of the universe will solve a lot of problems. Not in the way we would like them to, but eventually it will, yes.
Right. They'll get it fixed, and then the polar ice caps will wash it out and cover it in water. But anyway, Tom, we have wrapped up 2 days here. We have wrapped up 2 days. I'm just going to go.
Just go. Just power through it.
Wrapped up 2 days here in Indianapolis. Today we got to talk to, or on Friday today, we're just going to, like I said, long day. Zach Harrison, Thayer Munford, Jeremy Ruckert. I was even the one with them, so I should remember that. And Ryan Day, an hour each with those guys. A lot was said. The morning scoop we just did that you have already listened to, we talked about some of the takeaways, but we learned a lot from Ryan Day, and that's mainly what I want to talk about, that Ryan Day session. So I thought we'd just go, not quite position by position, but sort of position by position about what was said, what we learned. Quarterback, we finally found out that we aren't going to find out about a starting quarterback for a while. Now, he did say by 2 weeks in camp he would like to know. Did you get this sense that I was talking with Marcus Hartman, our buddy, and he was saying, what, I might actually believe Ryan Day when he says he doesn't know who his starting quarterback is going to be. Are you falling for that crap?
I think that Ryan Day might think that he knows doesn't know who his starting quarterback. I might think that Ryan Day might believe that, but I still, if anyone wants to take the action of C.J. Stroud versus the field, I would be happy to lay a wager on that bet. Which, if really this is you've got a 2 in 3 chance, so you'd be a sucker not to take that bet, right? He talked about what he wants to see out of these guys, and don't make mistakes, and don't. And in the spring, I think we heard a lot about hey, one guy had a really good week. Oh, this other guy had a good week, and the other guy who was in front before didn't have such a good week. Now it's getting tighter. No, now this guy's back out in front again. I think by and large, it's going to be that this is a C.J. Stroud thing. Ultimately, that would be my bet, but we'll see. Someone asked Tim May, in a uniquely Tim May question, asked, what would it take for a quarterback to really knock your socks off, really just show you've got this job, you really knock my, and Ryan Day said, knock my socks off, and thought about it for a while, and said, ultimately it's are you working harder than Ryan Day is? Are you working harder than the coaching staff is? Are you picking up things on film that the coaching staff isn't picking up on film? When you're watching film, are you asking questions that the coaching staff hasn't thought about? That's the kind of stuff that's really going to impress them. So, I think there's a bunch of hard work still to do, and if it is a close battle, maybe that is the kind of thing that determines it. So maybe it isn't a foregone conclusion, but I would say C.J. Stroud is still the leader to me.
Well, and it kind of goes back to also what he said in the spring, where the quarterback who has the answers to questions that the coaches haven't been able to ask them, or they haven't been able to show them in practice because they don't have enough time. So it's the quarterbacks who know enough to come up with answers to questions they haven't gone through yet. And so they know this without having Ryan Day specifically to go through it with them because they don't have time. So it kind of goes along with that, where if a quarterback asks Ryan Day this, and Ryan Day's like, I haven't even seen that on film. So that, to be impressed by that. Yeah, that would. He did say that would knock my socks off, and so.
It was a little bit of a leading question. But,
yes,
yes,
correct.
Running back, one thing I thought was interesting that he said was, we saw the picture of Steele Chambers with the linebackers on their linebacker outing in the summer, and then they released the running backs did their outing, I think last weekend or early this week, and Steele Chambers was also in that picture, and it was like, well, what to make of that? And Ryan Day said basically, it's up to Steele Chambers. What does he want to do? Does he want to continue to try being running back? He can do that. If he wants to try and work with the linebackers and earn a spot on the field there, he can do that. Ryan Day doesn't really have a preference at this point. They have decent depth at both of those spots, and they've got remarkable depth at running back. But it is, I think, to Ryan Day, like, he could succeed in either of those spots. It's just, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, it was interesting. So is Tony Alford and at Washington, are they trying to wine and dine him? Like, he was at Top Golf with the linebackers. If it goes somewhere better for the running backs, does he get swayed that way? Ryan Day did again say Master Teague is the incumbent, and they always say incumbent rather than like returning starter or he is our starter, he's our incumbent. So I think we still probably all expect him to be very likely to take the first snap. I don't know, what that means later on in the season, but Day also did say it's hard to play more than 3 running backs. And so when you look at the running back room, the 3 running backs for me, you have to put Master Teague in there, you put Myron Williams in there, and you can't leave Travion Henderson out. And those are the 3. I think that you pull 90, you pull 100 people who follow the program, and 95% are going to say those same 3.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much a given, and that's the kind of thing that might lead Steele Chambers to halfway through fall camp. If Ryan Day is presumably saying these same things to Steele Chambers. If he's saying them in public, he's certainly saying them behind closed doors. You would think that would probably lead Steele Chambers, if he thinks like, hey, I'm not going to be one of those top 3. Maybe if you're 4th. Then a guy gets hurt, then you're in the top 3. So maybe if you're top 4, I think that might be something that ultimately leads him to being a linebacker, because they have Travion Henderson is going to be here a while. Myron Williams still has another year after this one. So at least 2 of those guys are going to be here for at least another year or 2. This is not a logjam that's necessarily going to solve itself unless someone transfers out, and I don't think either of those 2 guys are going to transfer out. So it's not really a logjam that's going to solve itself.
Myron Williams technically has 4 years of eligibility. Not that anybody would expect a running back to stay at Ohio State for 5 years, but that is there. Let's move to receiver, because there's been talk in the spring, concern about Julian Fleming. There, some people are saying, I'm hearing rumors. And when you hear rumors, that's never a good thing in today's age. But Ryan Day couldn't have been more happy with the summer that Julian Fleming has. He said he's healthy. His shoulder, Tom, no longer popping in and out like it was last season, which sounds like a good thing.
That sounds like significant medical progress. I'm not a doctor, but that does seem like significant medical progress to me if your shoulder is no longer popping in and out.
He said he loved his attitude, too. Like, there's, for all of the concern that Buckeye fans may have had, I think, regarding Julian Fleming, get rid of the concern based on what I heard from Ryan Day today.
Yeah, and he's someone who I think if there has been any kind of concern behind the scenes, if he's going to be in the rotation this year, and I think there's no real reason to think he's not going to be in the rotation this year, that solves a lot of those problems. If the issue is, well, I want to play more, well, if they're happy with you, they're happy with your work ethic, they're happy with your attitude, they're happy with your performance, guess what? You're going to be in that wide receiver rotation. You're probably playing 6 guys. It is a very deep and talented room, but even in that deep and talented room, Julian Fleming is talented enough that he should be in that rotation somewhere, and then you're on the field and then you're getting catches, because he hasn't had a chance to play a lot in the last couple of years. Freshman year he didn't do much. Last year was kind of a wonky year, and so there you didn't have a chance to play a lot and do a lot, and so that was it was kind of a freshman year and then a weird sophomore year, and then all of a sudden he's been here for a couple of years, but yeah.
There's a lot to like there. Marvin Harrison, he had some good words to say about him. Jackson Smith and Jigba, as you would expect. So, there's I asked Day, same thing I asked Jeremy Ruckert, like, is this almost an ideal position for a new quarterback, a young quarterback to be in? And it's hard to look around and say, I'd rather they had this receiver or this running back. So lots like their tight ends. Didn't talk too much about the tight ends today, other than the fact that Ryan Day said they're going to have to get Jeremy Ruckert, into the 30s in the catches, which I don't think it's difficult. But if you've got Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson in the 60s or 70s, and Jackson Smith and Jigba in the 30s or 40s, things can. That's a lot to ask for your fourth guy to be in the 30s.
That's a lot of footballs. And one thing that, before we completely move off wide receivers, one thing that he did clarify, Jalen Harris did medically retire. Elijah Gardner did just kind of retire from football, just decided he was kind of done with football. So those were two things that we had heard. They're now official. Ryan Day has officially put his stamp on those. But yeah, I do wonder, Jeremy Ruckert, you look at him and it's like, how could you not throw him the ball 40 times? And then you look at all the other things around and it's like, well, how can they throw him the ball 40 times?
Yeah.
Julian Fleming was in the class of 2020. He was not in the class of 2019, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay, so I said 2019. Sorry, there was someone walking over to ask us to take a picture of them, and they completely fried my brain for about 30 seconds. Apologize. Sorry about that. So yes, he had the one season, not the 2 seasons. And so yes, but the one season was a weird season. And so now you have a second year to go try and set that straight. So offensive line. I talked to Thayer Munford. I was there for Thayer Munford for the full hour. He had a lot to talk about. He's just offensive linemen are always my favorite interviews. Like when in doubt, I always want to do the offensive lineman interviews. They're always just the most interesting, the most fun. He talked about the fact that the NIL deals. Like what's your NIL? What kind of NIL deals are you looking at? And he just was like, well, got a car dealership, so I'm going to get a car out of that, and then some other stuff. And it was just so interesting to hear him talk about that. And it was just like, they're just openly talking about getting cars now. Like, okay, this is different than previous years. He also talked. This is something we talked about in the morning scoop on Saturday, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on it. But it's just on Harry Miller and Thayer Munford and Harry Miller. They play different positions, but they're both offensive linemen, and they've kind of had similar career tracks where they didn't play their first year or didn't play much their first year. Second year, they're starters. It was a little rocky. It wasn't necessarily real smooth. And then they kind of, now Harry Miller's going into that third year. You look back at Thayer Munford's second year and it's just like, well, that was just a blip. And then if all your track record is that second year, you don't have that third year track record yet. You still have those people going, this guy's terrible. This guy will never be any good. Patience. And as Thayer Munford told Harry Miller, get off Twitter. Don't listen to people who are on Twitter. Get off Twitter. Stop listening to people. And that was one of those things that I think was in one of Nevada's nuggets was Harry Miller had gotten off Twitter. So, sounds like Harry Miller has taken Thayer Munford's advice, and that's probably good advice for us all.
That exactly, and it should be something that they maybe they do talk about it with the team themselves, like every year, one of those real life Wednesdays things, like have Isaiah Prince come in and talk about his bad times on social media. Have Harry Miller talk about it. I guess you can have. You don't have to go far to find players who have not had the best experience on social media. It's good advice to stay away from it for those guys. Paris Johnson, Ryan Day could not say enough good stuff about the fact that he is selfless to move to guard. He's very good at it. Just an outstanding student as well. So there's plenty to like there. I can't wait to see what happens on that offensive line. Maybe we'll get to see something on August 3rd, first day of camp. Do we get to go to practice, Tom?
I'm going to say yes, and we get to watch some stretching and the punt.
Ooh,
Punt is always my favorite to watch, and there's actually a little intrigue with punt this year because you don't quite know what you got there yet. So
before we move to defense, Ryan Day also said Cameron Babb will not be available for camp. We'll see how long that lasts as well. Defensive line, Tom, JT Tuimoloau is the correct pronunciation. Will play. How much, obviously, will be up to him. Jack Sawyer has been here longer, so he's ahead of him. Just a lot of guys, and as Ryan Day keeps saying, Larry Johnson likes to roll those guys in, and boy howdy. So there's a bunch of guys to roll in. Saying good things about Tuimoloau is just physical presence and his athleticism, and there's plenty to like there, and said something to the effect of, yeah, probably if he wasn't so good, we wouldn't have worked so hard and waited so long on him. And it's like, oh really? Is that right?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. You notice that it was there was only one guy who got to play the. There were a lot of people who didn't get to take visits. There was only one guy who got to wait long enough to actually take visits. So, yeah, don't try that if you're a third string or a 3-star punter. That's probably not going to work out real well for you. So, yeah, that not real surprising. None of that is real surprising. And we've talked about Sawyer probably being a little ahead of him in terms of development and having that spring with Larry Johnson and the spring and summer with Coach Mick. Tui Malolo has obviously been working with a trainer and all that. He's not coming in way out of shape, but maybe that's the difference between Sawyer being either in that second pair or third pair and Tui Malolo being in either the third pair or the fourth pair of defensive ends. And then, again, that you have a chance to potentially move up throughout the year. Linebacker, I guess. Do I get to use Steele Chambers again here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Steele Chambers. I mean, again, Steele Chambers is a possibility there as well. He was asked about Dallas Gant and how much Dallas Gant has. I mean, Dallas Gant has basically been hurt the last couple of years, and he said there's sort of a limit to the value of mental reps. You always hear coaches talk about the importance of mental reps, and mental reps are basically you're at practice and you're hurt or you're not the starter, you're a backup, so you're not the guy who's out on the field. So, but you're watching and you're thinking, okay, here's how the offense is lined up. Here's the defense we're in. Here's what my role is on this play. And oh, look, they're audibling, and then this guy's going in motion, and now that means this for me. And you just, you're mentally paying attention. You're not just kind of zoning out and thinking about what you're going to get for dinner later. You're like, your brain is on the field, even if your body isn't. But Day said there's sort of a limit to the value of those mental reps where it's like they're really, really good. But at some point, you've got to be able to do it on the field. Hopefully for Dallas Gant, he actually does get a chance to do it on the field this year.
Ryan Day said it's a young group. And then at one point he's like, but it's year 3 for those guys, so they got to get moving. And I want to be like, actually, Ryan, it's year 4.
Yeah. See, I'm not the only one who can't remember what year people came in.
And so they don't. I say they don't have a lot of guys, but also they kind of do have a lot of guys, and yet they have a lot of guys for 2 spots because we didn't really get into the did you have a Sam, do you have a, that sort of thing, because
we've gotten lots of answers out of that over the years. It hasn't necessarily had any correlation to what happened on the field. But go on.
Exactly. So, he talked about, those guys, Tommy Eichenberg, Reed Carrico, Cody Simon as well. Pala EA now, Teote still, as we mentioned on a previous show, paying his own way and waiting to hear word from the NCAA. Nothing, Tom, has changed in the 4 hours since our last show.
Not yet, but we should stop by NCAA headquarters on the way out of town and see if that if that changes anything. Cornerbacks, Cameron Brown is good to go, cleared to start practice, will be full go. That's very good news for Ohio State. We'll see. I mean, we've talked all year about how an Achilles injury is very tough as a cornerback. We'll see how well he can come back from that, if that hampers him at all. But, Seven Banks, he was very optimistic about Seven Banks. Seven Banks was someone who popped up on he got a couple votes on the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year voting among the media for Big Ten Media Days. And it was like, yeah, I mean, I guess. And you see him as like a potential first-round NFL pick. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess. That has sort of been the track record in the past for Ohio State corners. I'm a little bit in the sure, okay, let's see it. That would be, there's a long way to go from where he was last year to where he's being, hyped up as. But that's kind of what this time of year is in college football media.
And he said, Seven had some really good games last year, but wasn't saying he was better than people thought, or he said there's basically implying there's still room to grow, and we all know that. I thought it was interesting when he talked about the freshman corners. He said, J.K. Johnson, Jordan, Andre.
Yes.
And so I was like, oh, really? So is that where Andre Turrentine is right now until they figure out, maybe not figure out where he wants to be, but maybe try him at corner first? And he was a guy that, when I've written about him, I've written that he could play pretty much anywhere in the secondary, so I guess why not try him at corner? But early returns are good on Johnson and Hancock and Andre Turrentine as well, so that's good. Was there anybody else at corner that was?
Well, I mean, those were I think the ones that were.
Didn't say anything about Ryan Watts. Or
he didn't talk about Ryan Watts, Legend Cavazos. I don't think he talked about Marcus Williamson much. I do feel like the default answer on corner, guys who are maybe a corner, maybe a safety, is you start them at corner. If they can't play corner, then you move them to safety. Because that's it's like starting a guy at tackle, and if he can't handle tackle, you kick him inside to guard. Kind of the same, the defensive version of that. So yeah, I mean that was kind of interesting to me that he's but they have bodies there this year. That's the most important thing. It's like they're not, you're not to the point where it's like they're literally about to run out of scholarship corners this year. They took a massive class in 2020, massive class in 2021. So they're kind of like catching up now on bodies. So that's going to be big for them.
They can now go from, if they have a question at one spot at corner, they can put another corner there.
Yes.
Or if they have a question at safety, they can put another safety there. Last year, they had to put a middle linebacker there.
Yeah.
And you saw the results.
Yeah, that's you have kind of gone from, your floor is higher. Yeah. And Ryan Day said he has more confidence in them this year than he did last year. I mean, he feels a lot better about the general status there. Safety, Court Williams is back. Court Williams will be healthy for the start of for fall camp. Court Williams also was someone who Ryan Day talked about as the hardest working guy on the team. He said if you take a poll of the team, Court Williams is going to come up with a lot of different people. Adam Stewart, who was one of the trainers of the team, when I tweeted that out from the Buckeye Scoop account, quote tweeted it and said he would vote twice for Court Williams.
That is illegal.
That is not how voting works. But he is someone who, as the trainer, has been working a lot with Court Williams to rehab that injury. So he would seem to know. Court Williams is someone who, going back to high school, we were hearing, hey, this is a guy who, watch out for this guy. He's probably a bullet, probably. And, that's probably Craig Young this year. But if he's in that rotation again, like, if Craig Young is gone in a year, which he could be, then Court Williams is kind of maybe that next man up there. But, Josh Proctor, he talked about Proctor, and he talked about Lathan Ransom. And it's like, they'll tell you, oh, it's still an open competition. Oh, we're not sure. Oh, well, and then you hear them talk, and it's like Ryan Day talks. He's Proc and Lathan. Okay, well, there are your starters at safety, is what that tells me.
Because he even mentioned Lathan Ransom up at the big podium, talking about guys who stepped up last year. And when a coach keeps talking about a player, unprompted, then pay attention and keep that in mind, which we've said here a bunch before, including when talking about Lathan Ransom. So for me, like as we try to nail down this depth chart, if Cameron Brown is back and good, then that makes me feel better about him at corner. It certainly sounds like Josh Proctor and Lathan Ransom as your starting safeties. I can't wait to see what Court Williams done. We've heard so much about him. He's going to be a big safety. We'll see how much he's slimmed down. But when Ryan Day says he's a future captain, back before he ever even practiced once at Ohio State, that's high praise. And so look forward to seeing that. Marcus Williamson is back for his 6th year, so he's got a lot to prove, and he didn't come back just to watch from the sideline. So there's going to be a bunch of roles in nickel and dime and things like that. The nickel bullet, Ronnie Hickman type of stuff. So a lot is still to shake out. Special teams.
Well, Marcus Hooker is back.
Yes,
Marcus Hooker is back on the team. He had been suspended, obviously, in the spring. He's now back. I'm not necessarily expecting him to be right. He was not one of, it wasn't Proctor and Ransom and Marcus Hooker, but
late last year Hooker was healthy and still wasn't playing defense.
Right.
So
yeah,
keep that in mind.
Yep.
But the fact that they brought him back is it's not nothing.
Yeah. No, that's something. And if nothing else, it's another healthy body to have there, which is not a bad thing based on what you probably have learned from the 2020 Ohio State football experience. Special teams, he was asked about bringing in the transfer kicker from North Carolina, whose name is
Noah Ruggles.
Thank you very much. I came up with Noah and could not remember what the last name was.
How could you forget Ruggles?
Well, it's been a long week, as we may have mentioned. That was an interesting answer because it was, he said he basically said, we're going to give ourselves another shot to have a good kicker this year. And, Jake Seibert, I think, I don't think they've lost complete faith in Jake Seibert or anything like that, but Jake Seibert missed a couple kicks, missed a couple field goals in the spring game. And don't do that. don't miss a couple kicks. And they said, you get the set. You have the concern that is a game going to come down to a kick, and if a game comes down to a kick, you want to have a kicker you have a lot of confidence in, and they had an open scholarship, so it was kind of like, well, sure. Let's do it. Let's give ourselves one more potential option at kicker.
And Ruggles has experience kicking in big games. He was a starter 2 years ago, so this isn't anything new to him in terms of kicking in pressure situations, where it is fairly new to Jake Seibert, even though I believe he kicked in the national championship game of some sort, maybe some extra points.
He kicked some in the postseason for sure, because Blake Hallbeal was dinged up, and Day also mentioned they had some issues on kickoff last year. It gives you another, because Dominic DiMaccio was handling kickoffs. The walk-on last year gives you another option for kickoffs as well.
Yeah, anything not much regarding punting. I think everybody expects Jesse Mirko to be the guy. They didn't bring in another scholarship punter, so that's a good sign there. Anything else, Tom? I think we've covered it. We went through and touched on everything.
I think we're out of positions. Unless Ryan Day talked about a shortstop I don't remember about. I think we're out of positions to talk about. Good.
That will do it then for today. Thank you guys for listening. Reminder to check out BuckeyeScoop.com. If you are not yet a member, give it a shout. Give it a shot right now, because camp is here. As soon as Big Ten Media Days are over, I mean, for me, it's here. And so there's going to be a bunch of football content coming your way at BuckeyeScoop.com as well. More videos like this at YouTube.com/BuckeyeScoop. So subscribe there, hit the bell for the reminders. And that will do it for today from Indianapolis. We will talk to you guys later.